Hi, it's Linda Fox. I'm Senior Reporter for PhocusWire. I'm at the Arival Conference in Berlin, and I'm here with Olan O'Sullivan, and he's CEO for Trekksoft. Thanks for joining us, Olan.
Thank you.
So let's start with the Bocan and Fair Harbour acquisitions, because that seems to be a huge topic at the moment. Does it impact you at all that they've been kind of almost taken out?
Yes, it does. In many respects, it's completely changed the market. I think in both good and potentially negative ways. So the good aspects are that it's really woken everyone up to what's going on in the market, what specialization. I think in terms of ResTech, we were quite horizontal solutions up until relatively recently. Now we really need to focus. And there's certainly been pricing pressure at the lower end of the market. It's becoming a bit more commoditized. But equally, the positive aspects are that it's driving things like channel management. More channels are coming into the market as well from, for instance, the Asian market. So it's just becoming a far more dynamic environment, and I think those two acquisitions just created a lot of buzz around that. And looking at conferences like this, it just feels like, we've arrived. I think I've been involved in the industry for about 5 years, and so I was like, oh yeah, tours and activities, and it will come or it won't come. And it just seems to all happened, and it coincided with those acquisitions.
For sure, there's a real buzz about it at the moment.
Yeah. Definitely.
So you had quite a few acquisitions yourself. I think it was Wooltart last year and something else the year before.
Yeah.
So how are those all kind of shaping out?
Yeah, so at the moment they're still individual businesses, they're not integrated, so they're operating as a standalone business. So we've DigiTickets in the UK, so they're focused on visitor attractions. Then Wooltart's focused on ski schools. And mainly as what we see is that we need, we're supplier led, right? So there is going to be specialization. We think, particularly in the mid and upper tier of the markets, that horizontal solutions won't work for everybody. I think if you look at hotels, not everyone runs a Booking.com. They may distribute a lot of their rooms there, but they're not going to run their businesses on that. And we think that's the way the market will develop in the long term. And then we've got internal brands that also service all of those businesses. So we've got a payment gateway, and we've now got an independent channel manager, so it's outside of the product. Previously, you needed to use Trekksoft to avail of our distribution channels. Now, for example, if you have your own back office that you've been working with for maybe 10, 15 years, you've constantly been iterating on that, we can also connect you into our distribution channels without the need to be using our actual core reservation tools.
Okay, and you had a piece of research out earlier this year, or was it late last year? Anyway, one of the things that came out of it was more bookings on marketplaces. Now, you owned that quite a lot of that was because you were signing up a lot of players, but there must be other factors involved.
Yeah, I think one thing we looked at as well versus the hotel market is, if you go back 20 years, hotels had about 4 to 6% of their bookings were on online travel agencies. Now, periods of market stress then led to where those numbers accelerated to the point where they're plus 50% today. I think that's natural as time goes on. That competition, for instance, we had a workshop on it last night discussing about direct versus indirect sales. Previously, if you were a business that maybe you were strong on certain keywords, you had an established presence, and the OTAs weren't targeting the activities in a big way, you got a lot of just normal traffic that you converted, and that you just did that, and that was part of your business, so you didn't really think about it. Now, OTAs could be competing on that. They're competing against you for AdWords, and they're getting more mind share with the consumer. I also think TripAdvisor obviously has an impact. A lot of traffic to merchants' websites came from a TripAdvisor profile. So booking profile was, I went on, I was going to a destination, I looked at the reviews on TripAdvisor, I clicked on the link to the website, and then maybe I converted through the merchant. Now there's a direct booking link within TripAdvisor. If you don't have a listing, you're going to be offered alternative products. So that's all of that together, plus the increased amounts of money coming into the sector. That's also adding to the increase, I think, in bookings that are coming via channels.
I think you also saw sort of an interesting stat around Google Trips and booking for suppliers. Is that right?
In terms of the Google Trips product?
Yeah.
I think Google Reserve and Google Trips are quite interesting because they get again, search is still the main driver. The mind share is still quite low for a lot of these brands. I think TripAdvisor aside, it's predominantly still search, and it's wherever you can reduce the friction for the booking process, particularly very close to departure times. And I don't see that changing. I think consumers, when they're like trying to book an activity, they will book some of the key attractions, maybe a couple of months in advance, but they'll still want to discover a location when they get there, and then they're going to search and they're going to use their mobile. So Google products are definitely helping break down that friction, so they can help push the demand to where it wants to go.
But at some point, do you see kind of Google, switching from the kind of meta model to, transactional, and also perhaps needing to buy a technology company?
Yeah, well, Touring Bird is an example of that. I think that's going to be their model.
Yeah.
That's
Does that then become the kind of savior for independent suppliers, do you think?
It depends. I guess they have to look at what the AdWords spend is, right? So the OTA spend a lot of money. If in aggregate that the suppliers can also help with that spend, at the moment they don't know what to do. So if they can leverage that in terms of the SME segment, because their gross margin's a lot higher. So in theory they should be spending more to get more business direct. But because they don't know what to do and the actual absolute value is quite high, that's difficult for them. So that's something that Google could definitely have an impact on, and given the fact that it's through search, and I think we see this in general in travel, Airbnb has a high mind share, but the rest of travel is seen as transactional.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you can direct it towards the brands, like this is experiences, people don't care about like the distribution channels per se. I think as consumers, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's how. But if you talk to experience providers, they really don't know what's going on. A lot of this is happening very fast, and there's certain changes. Because it's transactional led as well. The larger brands focus on the head of the market, right? So like it's talk about adding more product selection, but does that really happen? I'm not sure.
So how do you see 2019 playing out in terms of tourist activities and distribution then?
Yeah, I think like there's some interesting things going on at the moment. I think like in a way we've taken a step back. So with all the channels that have come in, I think channel management has become a real product. Previously it was something that was a nice to have, and now it's like everyone wants it, but also some of the larger channels, so with TripAdvisor and Booking, they're also forcing people that are already direct connected through systems like ours to also relist, for instance, manually on something like Booking to get advantage of certain pricing benefits, like our listing placings or whatever it happens to be. So all these things are a bit strange. I don't think that will last forever. I think the established companies in the sector they'll want something independent. They'll want to be able to list across all the different distribution channels. They're not just going to focus on one. But at the moment, I think there's still a lot of confusion, and 2019 will probably remain like that. And we will probably see. But what the distribution channels also offer is the potential for consolidation, even in the experience sector, because it was very hard to build a brand.
Yeah.
It was only by location. So I had one tour, it was in that particular town. Now maybe you can start to think about, well, I don't need to sell everything in that location. I've got one good product. Where else can I bring it to? Because I know how to distribute it. I think that's quite interesting.
Okay. Final question, standardization around APIs. I know that's kind of a topic close to your heart. What, is it coming down the pipe? What's going on there?
There's talk, but I think it's still quite slow. And I think obviously some of the things that we just discussed in terms of what some of the larger distribution channels are doing is frustrating that process. I'm sure there's plenty of people in those organizations that are interested in that. I'm sure there's some that aren't. Also, we as ResTech systems, a lot of it comes back to us, and our customers really, they want that, but they just want it to be simpler. They don't want to have, like, there's a lot of operations in terms of distribution when we're dealing with different channels that creates a lot of effort for the supplier, which we try to minimize, but in the absence of standards, there's only so much we can do. And it's going to take some time. I think in the airline industry, NDC has been coming for God knows how long.
7 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Have you been writing about it?
Yeah.
All right, Olan, thanks a million for your time.
Thank you very much.